Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Afterburners podcast. I am your host, Mr. Sam Niedermeyer. With me, as always, is the man, the myth, the legend, my co-host and my partner, I should say, Mr. Bobby. Bobby, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, and I thought we established last time that you were, in fact, the legend. Or no, it was royalty, right?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely the royalty. So
yeah.
Or if you really wanted to, you can call me your adequacy.
All right. I think I'll stick with Sam.
Sam works. We have a threesome for the first time in our lives today. I'm pretty excited to introduce everyone our fantasy football mate, one of the funniest guys. Don't hold it against him that he's Canadian. He's actually really, really great, and he's teaching me some insights about hockey. Mike Jarvis, actually, which is interesting because your name is just like you're from Canada, so I assume it's like French Canadian, Gervais, but it's actually Mike Jarvis. Mike, how you doing today?
I'm well. How's it going over there?
We're excited to have you. We have nothing but we're doing great today. We're really excited to have you. And you're going to bring your insights and to give everyone a little.
And he's going to do better than bringing his D game apparently, which is what Sam does every pod.
It's funny because Mike's bringing his A game, I'm bringing my D game.
I don't know what I'm
just
bringing.
Throwing that out there.
I guess you're bringing your B game then, Bobby.
Bobby's got his B game.
So we're bad, guys.
We are bad.
Or we're dabbing.
You want to hear a funny story? The title of this podcast, and right now we're doing this on video as well, so maybe we'll share this. I don't know. It depends on how terrible I look. Is the Afterburners, obviously Afterburners podcast. And even though we are kind of the parents, Bobby, the naming rights of this podcast actually goes to Mike. Mike is the one that actually names it the Afterburners podcast.
Yeah.
And how do you feel about that, Mike?
I feel good. You know, when you guys mentioned that you had a podcast going and we're looking for a name, I sat there for a second and I thought, well, you know what? They're probably just going to take big shits on people in different cities. So when you sit there and take a big shit, you sit there and think, man, that really burned after. So what better name for the podcast than the Afterburners?
Yeah, and it's interesting because Mike was the only one who I think knew that definition. The rest of our league seemed to think it was supposed to be cool, like a jet or something. But no, it's just flaming hot shits.
Yeah, well, that may mean that the rest of the league is a little more sophisticated than I am, and I'm okay with that.
The fact that you are being called sophisticated, I think, is just great enough. But you know what? The afterburn just started on you there, and we're happy to have you. We got some great stuff we're going to talk about today. Quarterback heavy episode in our Dynasty Football League. We're talking about. We're going to talk about kind of comparing a few quarterbacks that maybe long term as opposed to short term. How you value them in trades. Quarterback twos that you're thinking of for your QB2 dynasties. Before we begin, because I know you two would love to argue about this. You had some great stuff going on. Before we begin, Mike, tell everyone where we can find you on Twitter, Bobby, you too, and then we're going to get started.
Yeah, great. Hey, everybody. You can find me on Twitter at Mike Jarvis. It's MikeGervais.
Yep. And you can find me at Wrecked Fantasy, REKED Fantasy.
Obviously, this is at Afterburners Podcast. So, Bobby, this is kind of this episode's kind of your brainchild, kind of going back and forth about the whole QB situation with you and Mike. Why don't you give us a little backstory about this?
Sure. So this pod was born, or this episode of this pod was born when I was talking to Mike, and we were talking about the trade value of Andrew Luck, I believe it was, and we got into a pretty friendly debate about the value of a high-end quarterback in a 2-quarterback or super flex league. And we have differing opinions. That's part of what's going to make the show interesting. Everyone knows. And I actually watched, just a quick aside, I watched First Take for the first time ever today. And Stephen A. Smith was going into somebody about the Cowboys. And I know it's shocking that Stephen A. Smith would yell at somebody. But we're not going to be like that at all. Maybe we'll take a little bit there, maybe Mortal Kombat finish him style at the end. But it's going to be interesting because we do have some differing opinions. Mike is more leaning towards the high-end quarterback side, whereas I'm more of slightly devaluing them, but it should be a good episode.
Yeah, I think we're and this is, I don't know if you mentioned it was definitely QB too. So Mike, where do you stand on this entire like value of like how important is having like two great quarterbacks or maybe like two mediocre quarterbacks or even just like one high end value quarterback in a QB?
That's great. I think it's very important to have, at least one of the top five. If you can get two of the top, say 7, then I think that's just gravy. Anything else, and I would not like my chances going into the year being in a 2-quarterback or a super flex league. I just think that quarterbacks hold such high value that they bring a better return on your draft investment than, say, 2 high-end running backs. One of the reasons why I think about this, and Bobby, I'm not sure if I've told you this or not, but you look at a running back, those guys get the hell beat out of them every snap. Whereas quarterbacks are so protected now by the NFL that half the time they're not even being touched. So when I'm looking into it, there's a greater risk for a potential season-ending injury for a running back than there is a quarterback as well. So that definitely plays into my thinking as well too.
Yeah, and that's fair. I will say, just generally speaking, O-line play is actually on the decline. So that protection for the quarterback has been going downhill over the past couple of seasons. And we have seen some more injuries to quarterbacks. However, most of my argument isn't necessarily because I'm with you. I think running backs are volatile. And we talked about this the other day. I think running backs are basically the pitcher's equivalent in baseball, football, where, yeah, you can ride them out for a few years, but they might end up getting Tommy John surgery, or in a running back's case, maybe like a foot injury that keeps them out for a while or something like that. What I think factors in, and I had in my outline here was, let's say, like the opportunity cost of drafting a high-end quarterback, so like an Aaron Rodgers or a Andrew Luck type in the first round of a startup. That means that in that first round, you're going to be missing out on guys like Julio Jones or AJ Green or other wide receivers of that nature.
Right.
Odell Beckham.
Or Odell Beckham.
Staring up at the solar eclipse.
Yeah. Right. I mean, you definitely will. But to counter that point again, wide receivers and quarterbacks are 1-1. The running backs, however, it's not very often you see a running back get 300 touches or so. The NFL has transitioned to such a pass-heavy league, whereas, you look at a quarterback and they can throw for 45, 50 attempts a game. And, if they throw for 45, if you have a guy like Andrew Luck or, Aaron Rodgers or Breeze, they throw 45, 50 times a game, you think they're probably going to complete at least 30, 35 of those. And you say the average completion maybe 8 yards, 9 yards. So now you're looking at 250 to 300 yards, and you're probably going to get 3 or 4 touchdowns, maybe a pick. That's a great day. Whereas if you get one of those wide receivers that you mentioned, Julio or AJ Green, they may be targeted 7, 8 times. Say they'll get 75 to 100 yards, maybe a touchdown. That quarterback's going to have a much better game than the wide receiver. And so I just think that you can get a guy maybe in round 3 or 4, like a Brandon Cooks or a Baldwin, and you won't miss a whole lot as opposed to missing out. Like if you get a Baldwin in, say, round 3 as opposed to Julio in round 1, the difference to me isn't that great.
So, sorry, Sam, go ahead.
No, I was no, I was just gonna ask, like, what? So, like, if you have like the average quarterback, Mike, like, what would you say is an average quarterback day, and then what would you say is an average running back day, and then what would you say is an average wide receiver day?
Yeah, for sure. Are we talking? We're talking like elite quarterbacks, like a Rodgers or a Brady or something, right?
So let's just go at like just average altogether. Let's say you have the top 15 of each position.
Okay. I would say probably if we average it out, we'll say 35, 40 attempts, we'll say 25 completions, 25 to 30 completions, maybe 250 yards and 2 TDs for our quarterback.
So we got 250 and 2 TDs, and
Yeah.
if we're playing in most leagues, that would be 4 points per touchdown. So that's 8, 250. You factor in 25, so 10. So we're like 18 to 20 points, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you go to like an average running back day or an average wide receiver day.
I'd say an average wide receiver day, we'll say 5, 6 grabs, 70 yards, and half to 1 touchdown.
Okay, so 13, 14 points, something like that, non-PPR league. And then running back, where you say about 80, 85 yards and a touch, maybe?
Yeah, maybe. But the thing is, like, when you have to talk about running backs, there's not many bell cows out there anymore that handle 20, 25 touches because running backs get the shit kicked out of them so much. NFL coaches are finally realizing that, and they're going to that split or even the triple backfield. So, I mean, if your running back gets over 15 touches a game, you've got to be laughing. So I'd say 12 to 15, well, we'll say 15 carries for 70 yards and half a touchdown to a touchdown.
All right, so I guess where I was going with that is not to I don't think I'm the decider here between the two of you, but it seems like I'm kind of molding into that role very well here. My counter to that would be, okay, so you got this like average quarterback who's going to throw out like X amount of points. The wide receivers seem to be a little bit more at a premium. Running backs too, no?
Yeah, well, there's definitely that. So here's a stat that I looked up.
I love it. Bringing in stats to this. I love it.
I also love that Sam is trying to just take the debate from me. He went, you know what? I want to debate your position.
Manifest
so
destiny, bro. Manifest destiny. All right, you know what? That was my last question.
Oh, no.
That was my last question.
I think it's great. Go ahead. Do the work for me.
I'm a jabroni.
Know your role, jabroni.
Just know my role.
Shut your mouth. Okay, so here we go. I looked up the stats in our league. And again, it's a 2-quarterback league. The difference in the first of 12 ranked quarterbacks last year was approximately, fantasy-wise, 6 points a game on average. The 1 to 12 running backs, the difference is 9 fantasy points per game on average. And 1 to 12 quarterbacks, the difference is or wide receivers rather, is 5 points per game on average. So, I mean, if you sit there and you miss out, you brought up Julio or AJ Green. If you miss out on those guys, and then you get, a mid-teen guy, a 15th to 20th ranked guy, you're going to be missing out on approximately 5 points a game. Whereas if you do the quarterback, you're missing out on 6 points a game. So there you've gained a point right there. I realize, I said the running backs, it's a 9-point a game average. So I'm kind of shooting myself in the foot a little bit on that aspect.
Yeah, and interesting. So I did similar research, and fantasy engineering, I believe, I wrote it down. It's actually just the ffengineer.com. It's run by Kevin, who also works for Dynasty Elite Football. And I've done some mock drafts. Yeah, your man Kevin. So he had ADP for 2 quarterback leagues and Superflex. So earlier I had too much time on my hands, and our good friend Zach also had too much time on his hands. And we did a mock draft picking from the 6th spot of 2 different teams.
Okay.
So team 1, we took Antonio Brown, Devontae Freeman, Jay Ajayi, Travis Kelce, Ben Roethlisberger, Tyrod Taylor, and I actually can't read my own handwriting there, but I think that was about it. And then team 2.
Alex Smith?
No, I just wrote down. Else. I wrote down the total amount of points per game. I think.
Ignore me.
Ignore that for now. But team 2, we took Aaron Rodgers, Derek Carr, Jay Ajayi, Devontae Adams, Isaiah Crowell, Golden Tate, and Olsen. Now, Mike, which team? I'm not going to tell you what the points per game were between those 2 teams. Which team do you think outscored the other one?
So I feel like this is a trap question.
It's a trap. It's a trap.
I like team 2 better, but I feel like team 1 probably outscored them.
You are correct. So team 1 outscored team 2 by an average of 2 points per game. So it's not a huge difference, but because they were able to go, I guess, wide receiver early, and then it does also factor in the running back difference. So we're both kind of shooting ourselves in the foot there, where running backs clearly are important for points per game.
Right.
But it was interesting to see the team that didn't go wide receiver early scored less. Because initially, I actually wrote to Zach worried that I was not going to be able to defend this position at all.
Yeah, it's a tough one to defend, that's for sure. I struggled with it myself today, trying to grasp at some points. And so I kind of did something similar, not to the extent that you did, because I was a little busy today. So I did just a 3-round mock draft in my head, and I spaced it out picking out of the 4 spot, or sorry, the 3 spot rather.
Okay.
So team 1 has Luck, Breeze, and DeMarco Murray, whereas team 2 has David Johnson, Brandon Cooks, and Stafford.
All right.
So which team would you rather in that?
So
I know I would take Johnson and Cooks and Stafford. That's just me, but it sounds like it's a trap.
yeah, I'm with Sam. And also, clearly, anytime somebody asks the other person to pick a team in this scenario, it's a trap. So clearly, team 1 outscored team 2, even though I would pick team 2.
Let me ask you guys a question real quick. Mike, let me ask you a question. So make the argument, if I'm in a 2-quarterback dynasty league, make the argument for me taking Andrew Luck or Aaron Rodgers in a early startup draft.
Okay, well, let's flip it from Luck right now, just because he's injured and none of us know when he's going to play. So we'll go with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is your guy, and maybe this is kind of an old school mentality of thinking here. You start from your quarterback, you build around that team in real life. If you got a shit quarterback in real life, you're probably not going very far. In fantasy, I view it as the same thing. You want that guy who's going to be consistent. You've got your guys out there, your Jay Ajayi. I'm probably pronouncing his name wrong.
I think but you're also talking to the 2 people who probably botch the most NFL names of any podcast.
You're on the right show.
There we go. So you've got Jay Ajayi, and Jay Ajayi had his few huge games last year where he put up, 200+ yards rushing.
Yeah, one of the
stats right now because I don't remember them off the top of my head. So in fantasy-wise, it was week 6 and 7 and 8. Sorry, 6, 7, and 9 really. Ajayi went for 33 points, 28 points, and 19 points. Can I say fucking on the podcast?
Hey man, this is fucking America. You say whatever the fuck you want.
I'm pretty sure we cursed.
I'm pretty sure you guys have as well. So,
my virgin ears.
Plus, we've said shit a bunch of times, and we've also talked about Nazis. So pretty much anything goes on this podcast.
Neo-Nazis.
There we go. Well, so Jay Ajayi, those 3 weeks were probably week winners for his owners. Whereas then, in week 16, he went ridiculous as well with 27.4. But you look at him in weeks 15, he had 4.10 points. Weeks 14, he had 5.8 points. 13, he had 11. But yeah, 10 and 11, he had 8.5 and 9.9. Those aren't anything special by any means. They're just average. So I think, back to my original point, with a running back early, you're more apt to get, an average week rather than, holy shit, this guy just went un fuego and won me my week. Whereas if a quarterback, say you've got, Aaron Rodgers facing off against, who's a really shitty defense? Oh, look, my Saints. He's probably putting up 25 fantasy points at least. And even on a down week for Rodgers, let's just pull that up real quick.
Mike, show the hat real quick. Show your hat.
Yeah.
There you go.
So it is confirmed that I am a Saints fan. but their defense sucks. It will improve this year, but
we really should have had someone on also to defend the position of early running back, because I don't think either of us is arguing that.
Right. So I'm looking at
next week's show.
Yeah, we'll have to find someone who believes in early running backs.
Aaron Rodgers' worst week last year was week 15 at 11.9 points.
I think his worst was when he didn't have Olivia Munn for that night.
Well, probably.
He doesn't have Olivia Munn period anymore.
Wait, who is it? Oh, they broke up?
They broke up.
Young 24-year-old.
Yeah, he's dating some model. Who knows? He'll be okay.
I hope he's okay, yeah.
I mean, how terrible for him.
And so, I mean, my boy Breeze had a couple really shitty weeks in weeks 13 and 14, where he had 9 points and 7.5. I mean, other than that, his worst week was week 4 at 13. So, I mean, you're more, like I said, you're more apt to get a guy who could carry you with a quarterback early. That's my opinion.
Bobby, do you like the quarterback early? We like the running backs early.
So, I guess where we differ, and I don't necessarily disagree, but the most consistent quarterbacks tend to be the older ones, minus Luck, who has a shoulder issue.
Right.
And so when I think about early picks, I do think, and generally I'm with you, I know we've talked about this before, Dynasty, you should be thinking in a 2 or 3 year window. If you're thinking any more than that, you're being a little ridiculous, because nobody can predict what's going to happen in the NFL 4 years out. In fact, in 2021, we might even be looking at a lockout.
One thing we can predict, in the year 2021, all of Ali's team will be retired.
What I was going to say, actually, funny enough that you beat me to it, I was going to say we're not drafting to beat all these teams. So the opportunity cost of taking let's say, Aaron Rodgers or Drew Brees early on is you're losing out on some of those younger wide receivers who could be the foundation. You mentioned this earlier, building the foundation of your team. I agree. I always want to build the foundation of my team. I just want to build the foundation of my team around some young stud wide receivers who, if they're better than, so let's say, for example, you take Andrew Luck and I take AJ Green, even though he's a little bit on the older side, and then I take Amari Cooper and you have Doug Baldwin, then it's my AJ Green and Amari Cooper against your one Doug Baldwin, and maybe later on, maybe an Emmanuel Sanders. I much rather have my wide receivers against your wide receivers for the long haul than, and I'd probably end up with a Matthew Stafford or something like that. Although, honestly, this was a question I was going to ask you. At what point do you not feel comfortable with someone being your QB1? Like, what name would you say is the last name of a quarterback that you're okay with them being your QB1?
That's a good question. Are we talking just this year or for the next, say, 2-3 years?
Dynasty.
So, yeah, so this is a Dynasty pod in the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
Come on, Mike. Do your homework on our podcast, man. You know this is Dynasty, bro.
Yeah. Okay. For me, I would say if I was doing a startup right now, guys I would want as my QB1 would be Rodgers, Breeze, Ryan, Luck, Cousins, all those guys for sure. Then probably Brady, Cam, and maybe Mariota.
All right, so we've already established then. Yeah, you're way less comfortable taking risks on, I guess, what I'd call guys that I consider low-end QB1s than I am.
How about Blake?
So not Blake Bortles. So for example, like personally, I would be okay if Winston is my QB1. I'd be okay if Stafford is. In fact, but I'd say like the lowest possible guy, and this is going to sound like an insult to him, but I actually think he's a pretty good quarterback, is I'd be okay even if Dalton was my QB1, assuming that I got a decent QB2 later.
Yeah, so here's a funny thing about Andy Dalton. I actually did some research.
He's touched by fire.
He's touched by fire. I actually did some research on him earlier on. Andy Dalton has finished 17th overall the last 2 years for quarterback scoring. Because he was a guy who I looked at and thought, oh, maybe I don't give him enough credit. No, I give him exactly the amount of credit he deserves. He is a mid-range quarterback.
I looked at those numbers too, and the one thing that I came to a conclusion, though, just going a little deeper into it, is A.J. Green's missed a few games here and there. Yep. Tyler Eifert, who's one of his top options, has missed a bunch of games.
And he's always going to.
I don't know. I think maybe that's because you traded me, Eifert. I'm clearly biased here, but I think this is the year he finally remains healthy and is a top tight end.
Tell you what, man, he's going to play 6 games, no doubt.
But all jokes about Eifert aside, John Ross, I think, is a legitimate weapon who can help Dalton's points scored go up. And I just see that as an emerging offense, although something we talked about earlier that is a bit concerning is the Bengals O-line is one of the worst O-lines in the entire league.
Yeah, it's not very good at all.
How about a QB2? Like, QB1, I think you all nailed it. I'm also, like, Mike, I'm going to add on, like, Jameis Winston. I think Bobby's right. I like Jameis Winston there on that. I like Marcus Mariota, your call there. QB2, at what point, like, are we like, this is just getting absurd?
Right. So Winston would have been, if I was going to go one more guy, it would have been Winston. The only reasons I didn't put him in QB1 territory, he throws a few too many picks for my liking. And
he's definitely a gunslinger.
He is, and I like that mentality. Sometimes I just don't think he's very smart. I've watched a few Bucs games, and he makes some dumb plays, and sometimes plays a little reckless, and I think he's going to find himself hurt seriously very soon.
Fair enough. But I'd say I like the fact that he has a giant in Mike Evans playing with it. He can just throw it too, so I like him there.
Yeah, similar to the Titans, the reason I like Winston is that's an emerging offense where they just drafted a bunch of guys that I think can really help him out. But I also see your point. Personally, I agree with you. I think Mariota is the better quarterback. That's why I call him Mariota. Right. But I do still think Winston, like the GOAT. Yeah, jokes are better when you explain them.
And I mean, Winston, very well could be a great quarterback, and it could be the fact that I'm a Saints fan being a little bit biased and can't give Tampa Bay any credit for anything. So for quarterback 2, I like Winston as a QB2. I really like Sam's boy Carson Wentz. I like Tyrod. You guys brought up a lot of great points in your previous pod that he's better than the Bills give him credit for. I think
the Bills seem to hate their good players.
No, I think they want the number 1 pick, right? Like I think they're just trying
to fight the Jets.
They're going after the guy from USC, Sam Darnold, or Josh Rosen, or Josh Allen. Pick any of them.
I've seen a bunch of Bills games because they're the closest team to me, so they always get played here. And Taylor's a pretty good quarterback, so I'd be more than comfortable with Taylor as a quarterback too. Russell Wilson is a high-end QB2 for me.
I would put him as a QB1 personally.
Really? Russell Wilson?
Yeah, absolutely.
He's too inconsistent, man.
I agree with Sam on that.
Look up his finishes over the past few years.
So I'm looking at it right now. So my
fantasy team is usually out by then, so it doesn't matter if he's my starter.
No, I meant his quarterback ranking finishes.
Well, it's because he's putting up 40 spots in the playoffs.
So last year, Wilson finished as quarterback 12. And the year before, he was quarterback 4.
That's why I'd have him as a QB1.
That's an average of a QB 8. Okay, fair enough. Whatever.
Yeah, that's top 8 at his position, which makes him a QB1.
Right. All right, whatever. I mean, I cut it off at 8, so he's low-end QB1, high-end QB2 for me.
Mike, where did Dak Prescott rank in that QB1, QB2 year?
Dak Prescott was 6th last year, and I got to give Bobby all the credit for this. I was super high on Dak Prescott until Bobby broke it down for me. And
in the BDT?
No, I think this is just
the BDT, as that's going to be the last one ever done, and it may never.
Mike, was Bobby sliding in your DM?
Bobby was sliding in my DMs. We slide in each other's DMs.
I hear people say positive things about Cowboys players, so I slide into their DMs and go, "Let me show you what's going on."
Bobby's just creeping in the middle of the night, looking up Cowboy stats to trash them.
Exactly.
So most, or not most, but a lot of Dak's fantasy points came from his legs last year. And, I don't know if you want that to continue. He had 6 rushing touchdowns. So there's 36 of his points right there.
If I recall, he accounted for, what was it? I said 25% of the Cowboys' rushing touchdowns.
Something like that. It's an absurdly high number. So,
however, the one thing I will say, and I can't believe I'm about to fucking defend a Cowboy here. I might need to go jump off a cliff after this or something. But the Zeke suspension might actually help him because he'll have to throw more as a consequence.
Right. That actually might hurt him too.
And he'll have to rush. Right. Yeah. People might just blitz him more or
get destroyed.
Yeah. I mean, they do have Darren McFadden run DMC, I guess, but I don't know.
Like 2 games and get hurt.
Yeah.
They got a great offensive line. That's always going to help him out, right? That's number one. But number 2, man, I saw him play at Mississippi State. He wasn't that good. He just wasn't that good. How is this going to continue? It's not.
Yeah. So I mean, I would feel comfortable with Dak as a quarterback 2. I wouldn't want him as a quarterback 1. That's for sure.
So what's the lowest, Mike, that, let's say, like, this is your cutoff for QB2? Like, after this guy, you're like, no more. I can't go any lower than this guy for my quarterback.
Smokin' Jay.
Smokin' Jay. As I spent $50 fab on Smokin' Jay.
I couldn't resist, man. I had to bring that up.
For quarterback 2, I think my low end that I would probably go, and this may raise some flags, and you guys may kick me off the pod with this and out of the league, but I would say Sam Bradford.
I'm fine with that. I wrote, if you remember, one of the first pieces I wrote when I got back into writing was Sam Bradford, maybe not.
Right, I do remember that.
Because he's bad.
No, because he's not bad.
Yeah, everybody thinks he's bad, but he's just not flashy.
He set a completion record last year. Not completion. It was
the percentage.
Percentage. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, and what was it, like 72% or something?
Something like that. Yeah, something absurdly high.
Yeah, so I mean, I would go Bradford for the quarterback 2. If we get into the guys like, oh shit, I don't even know.
Yeah, who wouldn't you take is a better question. Like, who is just, I would not feel comfortable at all with this guy as one of my 2 quarterbacks.
Alex Smith.
Okay.
Kaiser.
I like Kaiser.
Deshaun Pfizer.
Deshaun Pfizer, as you guys said, and I believe it was episode 1.
Yeah, that's a Sam original. We're gonna actually we're gonna get some visors made up with Pfizer on it.
Mike, I got another question for you. We're running a little. We're getting near the end of here, so
yeah, sure.
It's like a fire question real quick before we get into any type of towns in Canada that you want to afterburn. So, who's gonna be this year's Dak Prescott? Like, what quarterback or rookie? It doesn't have to be a quarterback. It could be a rookie, but ideally it's a quarterback. Is going to come out of nowhere and finish top 12?
It's a great question. I think Cam's definitely going to get back into the top 12 last year. He was 16th last year, but I think he's going to improve on that. I think he's just going to miss it on the top 12, but I think he's going to make a huge jump. And Carson Wentz. I love the weapons that Philly's giving him to build around. I think another year in the league, give him another year to understand what some defensive schemes are going to do. And I think
hates on me for Carson Wentz, bro.
It's not that. It's just his stats were really bad in the second half of the year, and I feel like people forget that. But as Alfredo, a friend of ours, pointed out to me, it was during he's in a different league.
Oh, it's you don't know him.
It was I don't remember what lineman because I'm a Giants fan, so I don't particularly pay attention to the Eagles linemen. But one of them was suspended, and his suspension coincided right with the decline of Carson Wentz.
He's not suspended this year, though, right?
No.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go Wentz. I don't think he'll be top 12, but I think he'll be, right around that 13 to 15.
This was fun, Mike. We enjoyed having you. But before we let you go, you absolutely cannot leave without you afterburning and destroying some town in Canada or some city. I don't know what city you don't like, but please. let us know, where should we never ever visit in Canada?
Yeah, if we were planning a trip to Canada right now, what's the one place that you'd go? Never go to that place. It's exactly like the Cleveland of Canada.
Well, there's two. I'm going to give you two cities. The first one is Toronto, just because it's a piece of shit, no matter what people think. It's full of overpriced sushi, overpriced hipster beers, and pretend Jays fans. And the second one, for just being a piece of shit city, we're going to go to southwestern Ontario. We're going to go to Sarnia. There's a bunch of oil refineries there. It smells. I actually toured their college dorms because I was going to go there, and the entire dorm smelled like piss everywhere. I was just like, yep, not going here.
I'm not gonna lie, that actually sounds exactly like how my freshman dorm smelled all year.
Yeah, I was under the impression all college dorms smelled like this.
Nothing but urine everywhere. Wake up, urine. Go to sleep. There's someone pissing in the trash can. Oh, there's someone pissing on my dresser. That's cool. That didn't happen.
I went to Kitchener, and then that's where I reside here now. I've been here for the last 16 years, and our dorms did not smell like piss. So
hey, is that named after Lord Kitchener?
Shit, I don't know. Probably, maybe.
Hey, you know the thing about Lord Kitchener, right? He's the guy in the original U.S. or not U.S. Britain Wants You, and he's pointing, and then that Uncle Sam picture came from him. It's during World War I. They're trying to recruit people. How do you spell Kitchener? Where you live? How do you spell it?
Kitchener.
That's it, Lord Kitchener, bro.
Sam's giving us a history lesson on the podcast.
I know my city is a very German heritage city.
Oh yeah, that's pretty neo-Nazi.
I was also going to say the not smelling like piss might be like a Canadian thing. You guys have better healthcare than we do. Someone surprised me that you have cleanlier environments than we do too.
Yeah, I can confirm that.
You can confirm that your cities don't smell like piss?
He just confirmed all of them.
I'll be honest with you, man. I can't walk 4 steps in the city without the urine smell.
Yeah, New York City is definitely a piss-smelling city.
Well, I mean, you go downtown Kitchener, and it's going to smell like piss because there's a bunch of less fortunate people who are hanging out on the street corners. But I think that's a lot of places. But you guys are welcome here anytime. We can drink some pops and afterburn the shit out of people.
We're going to take you up on that offer. We're going to come visit you one time and also let you know we're running out here, so we're going to call it a day. But you are welcome back on this pod at any time, sir. We've absolutely enjoyed having you.
Yep, thanks for being our first guest, Mike.
Yeah.
It was an absolute pleasure. I'm happy to come on and afterburn some people and hopefully influence people into taking quarterbacks early.
I think you did a good job. I'm not gonna lie. I'm still not convinced that you're right, and I'm pretty sure that I'm right, even though I finished last every year in fantasy football. So that's something to think about. Mike, well, go ahead, spit out your Twitter feed. Bobby, take us home.
Yeah, guys. Well, thanks for having me. You guys can find me on Twitter at Mike Jarvis. It's MikeGervais, all in one word.
And also make sure you check out Mike's Tiger blog. He hasn't written on it in years, but he definitely wants you to check that out. That's the plug of the week. Keep it classy, Fantasy Twitter. We'll catch you on the next episode.
Peace.